I was on call 24/7 because if there was a, crisis, I was the responder to do that. And I became a new wife and a new mother shortly after a few years within starting at Theta Care. And I was extremely stressed. And, the on-call, the being forced to stay within a certain area, always like feeling like I had to be on. And I went to my boss and said, something has to give. And it's not going to be being a wife or a mother. It's going to be being an employee.
We often think leadership means having all the answers and working until the lights go out. But real strength is found in those boundaries we set and the authenticity we bring to the table. Shana and Megan join me to dive into why resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about refusing to let life's challenges reduce who we are. We explore how true safety in an organization starts with leaders who are brave enough to be human first, showing that choosing to be a daughter, a mother, or a spouse isn't a distraction from the job. It's actually what makes us a leader worth following.
Leadership sound bites, real leaders, real moments, real growth.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites. That blah, 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 blah. Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites. Let me not run through my words like a mixer, right? Two guests. Shana's back. Thank you very much for coming back. CEO of Value Capture. And Megan is Chief Marketing Officer of Value Capture. And originally, Megan, you're the one that reached out about being on the podcast. And it was funny how it came about because the three of us met. And then it was focused on Shana, on her being on. And it's like, but Megan needs to be on too. So, thank you. You have a voice and a perspective. And I think people will relate to it as well. So I'm happy that both of you are here and I get to spend time with you. So Megan, I know you have a quote to kick us off. There were several to choose from.
Yes, I am several, mostly from one of my favorite authors, which is Maya Angelou. And it's really on resilience. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them.
What for you, why that quote? Why now? And what has it meant to you?
Honestly, it resonates in so many ways, and it's also been a part of my life. I mean, pretty much since college. I mean, different careers, career changes. You go to school for one idea and you stay in it for a little while, and then you leave and go to another one. Have been married, divorced, so I mean, dealing with that, I didn't, I focused on what I needed to do with my children and my career and moving forward and not dwelling. And then even just now in my 50s, really focused on what I want to do. And my children are adults. So it's really focused on what's healthy for me, spiritually, mentally, physically, and just really doing it and not getting reduced by the events, whether they're big or small, that happen to me along the way.
It's interesting when you're talking, and the thing that really stood out in all that, because I'm like bobbleheading and agreeing. I've had the kids and the divorce and the marriage and the jobs that didn't go as planned and the stuff that showed up. It's the not being reduced by it, because my core belief is that all that stuff that you described that we go through, that let's just call it life, is not meant to reduce us. It's meant for the opposite. It's meant to make us stronger. It's meant to make us more powerful. It's meant to have us life lessons so that, we're able to show up in more authentically in who we are. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, whether it's, a disagreement at work or, like one of my places I worked at had a really rough culture. And, instead of staying and letting it reduce me and kind of impact, it was an opportunity to stand stronger on my own 2 feet.
Mhm.
My daughter was, unbeknownst to me, was kind of watching how I handled it, which obviously had a lasting impact later on that I didn't necessarily know. And then it's also realizing that through those events that I really wasn't alone. I mean, sometimes you feel like you are on your own island dealing with the events, but there's people that are, on the sidelines, in the ring with you, at the table with you, kicking down doors and trying to protect you or help you or lift you up. And so I think that's also part of not even being reduced. It's just not the burden on yourself, but there's others that you may not realize are
Hmm.
there. And then there's others who have been there all the time.
Your village, your
Yes, your
people.
village.
Yeah. And as a leader, that's why walking the talk is so powerful, right? Is as leaders, we may intentionally say one thing. The thing that I hear most often is don't take work home with you. When you go on vacation, when you go on PTO, don't bring work with you. And that same leader that said those words is working late at night, is working on weekends, is answering emails while they're on vacation. Well intentioned. But the message they're giving people is that what I'm telling you is not the truth and the expectation. This is the real expectation.
I
And
think it's vital that you are your authentic self. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche, but I think it's honestly, true. I am extremely active on LinkedIn, and anybody who would find me on LinkedIn and go through my post would easily understand what it is I'm passionate about, what I stand for. I have posted about being on vacation and, taking your PTO. My son is a welder. I've posted about blue collar workers and, my pride and what he's doing. I have a baker for a daughter who wants to be an entrepreneur. I've appreciated my mentors. And then I've also, kind of gone in and complained, or not complained, but pointed out when people weren't there or they came in with a different intention and a different view and how that was received.
Mhm.
I think it's important that as a leader, you be authentic, but you also be candid, and empathetic, and because that's what people are hearing. And then when it mirrors your actions, it's even more important.
Mhm.
I
Shanna.
also think that's really important, though. I mean, I remember when I was an hourly worker, those expectations are different. So I'm actually just really sort of rolling with this conversation about, say what you mean and do what you say. But I often have to work on the weekend, right? And that doesn't mean that I expect you to do it or that it's only, you know what I mean? Like I really want to treat people like they're adults, right?
Mhm.
So here's what we have to have done and by when. And if you need to take the morning off to take care of your kid, that might mean that you are working late at night. I just think it's an interesting space to get into setting expectations for adults, like
Mhm.
really smart adult professional people.
Mhm.
Um, am I setting the boundaries? Am I setting the standards? Am I setting the expectations? Right. I just want to create that space and get out of the way and let people work the way that makes the most sense for them.
It's an interesting thing that you brought up because there's a nuance that's really more than a nuance. It's significant in what you just talked about. For me, it's this, what's the expectation of a work week, right? Time that you're spending dedicated to this thing called work, your job, your career, whatever it may be. And when that gets accomplished, is there flexibility in, where I put my 8 hours, my 10 hours, whatever that time may be. And that's one aspect, okay, to your point that you're describing that it could be later at night, maybe you saw that flexibility of family. And is there an expectation that my work week, which let's just for, agreement, let's just say it's Monday through Friday, 40 hours, maybe it's up to 50 hours a week. Is there also an expectation that I consistently do things at night, late at night, even though I put in my time, air quote time? And is there an expectation that I'm consistently doing stuff on the weekends? And I think that's where we need to be really careful
Yeah.
because people get paid not just for the hours that they work, but the knowledge that they come with, their ability to think and navigate people, organizations through whatever challenges are ahead. And I think it's unrealistic. I believe that it's unrealistic and not fair to the human to set up an expectation that this role that you do, will consistently require 60 to 80 hours a week. And there's no option because that, from my experience, is not sustainable. And so, I get it. I mean, I was in finance, and so finance for years in healthcare, you had your full-time job 12 months out of the year. And then for budget season, you had another job layered on top of it. And then during audits, there was another job layered on top of it. So there was an expectation. I mentally went into it going, these are going to be long freaking ass days. That it
But
wasn't
also in
typical.
healthcare,
Yeah.
a whole group of people that
But
are programmed to act in the hero role, right? If
yes.
I'm working 60 hours instead of 40, I mean, you got to be careful. I think especially in healthcare. But I'm actually really excited about the younger. So Megan, you were talking about your kids and how they're coming into their adulthood, and I'm thinking about my own kids and maybe Michelle, you as well. I am excited to see younger people approaching work-life balance. I mean, differently than I did. I have deep regrets for for many of the times that I thought I could solve the problem by working harder and longer
Mm,
and more hours. And all those hours took away from my family, took away from things I wanted to do for myself. And it was my path to learning.
hmm.
But I also set that example for my kids, and I regret that sometimes that I set
Okay.
that example repeatedly because I don't think that's not how I try to solve problems today. And they're not a captive audience anymore, right? They're off, they're adults, they're doing their own thing. It's hard for me to set a new example for them now. It's harder.
What would you do differently? I mean, seriously, and not just do differently, Shanna, because here's the thing is, what's the path to be able to do it differently? Because you have a
Well,
differently.
I am a little bit smarter now than I was then. I didn't know another way. So I leaned in with what I was good at, gritty, hardworking, tenacious. So just more of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes more of that doesn't solve the problem. It just buys you time to try to find something else to do.
Hmm.
I like to believe, and maybe Megan has some opinions on it, but I think I'm a little more practiced now than I was early in my career, um, at asking for help, at
Okay.
slowing down and evaluating the process rather than charging in and trying to beat it into submission. I'm better now at slowing down, assessing and looking for alternate ways to attack a problem.
Hmm.
Um, that's what is different for me now. So the thing that I don't get is another light to try it out, right? So I often think, well, if I knew then what I know now, what would I do? And could I have known then what I
There
know
you
now
go.
if I
There you
hadn't
go.
had all those
Yeah.
years of experience? So it's a tricky spot to be in.
Yeah.
So it's a bit ironic that I had a slightly different experience in healthcare. So I shortly after I started at Theta Care, so I was the spokesperson, the PIO. So I was on call 24/7 because if there was a crisis, I was the responder to do that. And I became a new wife and a new mother shortly after a few years within starting at Theta Care. And I was extremely stressed. And, the on call, the being forced to stay within a certain area, always like feeling like I had to be on. And I went to my boss and said, something has to give. And it's not going to be being a wife or a mother, it's going to be being an employee. And so we agreed to 4 days in office, and then I still remained kind of peripherally on call on Fridays and on the weekends. But that gave me Fridays to have play dates with my friend Kathy and our kids at the Children's Museum and coffee. And I could really decompress and step away from the stress of healthcare. And I
Hmm.
think honestly that allowed me to spend nearly 2 decades in healthcare because majority of those years I was fighting my darndest for some sort of work-life balance. And I did not go full-time 40 hours until the divorce when I needed, I didn't have the kids all the time and I needed more income. But the kids were also older, so it was okay.
Yeah.
And so I've been a huge advocate of putting those strict boundaries on. And if I'm after hours, I'm not going to respond to you unless it is a crisis or an emergency. And if I'm taking PTO, respect it. And it's been interesting with this generation. My children, I don't know if they're going to be as loyal to an employer as I was,
No.
you know.
Yeah.
My daughter's been at the same place for 2 years, but it's been a good, place to work while she's in school. I don't know if either one of my children will put in 20 years at one location.
That started changing through the traditionalists too, is that you started seeing that shrink more and more. Because the saying too is if you want more money, you're going to have to go to somebody else. It's like where you're at boxes you into this pay range. And so if you need to break out of it, if it's not, and a lot of employers, I think Sutter, they would like try and cap you at 10% if you were getting a promotion within the org. Well, hello, you could go outside and get way more than that and then come back and you're at this other pay range. So I've noticed that with experience. The thing that I heard you say though, Megan, that was interesting is we don't have to accept what what is presented, whatever the thing is, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is, so this is how they're doing it, but you didn't accept that that was the only way, right? You went and renegotiated. And I remember when I was going, it was my undergrad, because I didn't do college until later on in life because I thought I'm not going to do it until I actually need it, right? And I didn't need it early on, and I didn't know what I wanted to do anyway. So when I was going for my undergrad, I was working full time. My kids were in their teens, later teens. And then, and then I'm going to school full time. And there it was on site 2 days a week, the homework, all the stuff, and courses were 5 weeks long. So they just crammed all the content within 5 weeks. And so I negotiated with my boss because I thought I'm at work anyway. Can I go 4 10s? And I was in an accounting role, and she goes, Michelle, I don't know, because her brain automatically went to Monday or Fridays. Other people are gone. I said, no, I actually want Wednesday. What? I want Wednesday. Because that gave me 2 days at work, and then I had a break for homework and all the other stuff. And I had classes on Tuesday and Thursday night. So Wednesday was perfect. And so then she was kind of like, oh, because she didn't have a counter for that of why I couldn't do it. It was like, because I was picking this really odd day. But that freedom, to your point, Megan, because if I'm at work for 8 hours, it's super easy to work two more. And so I was able to cram my entire week, into the 4 days. And then I had my full day off, and that was life changing. It was just life changing. But I think the message to that is just because it is doesn't mean it has to be.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it's one of those situations where work is important, but it's honestly, it's for me, especially, it's not everything. My dad, who is a physician assistant, had his first heart attack at age 48.
Ooh,
And so after my three brothers and I made it past 48, we all started to breathe a little bit easier.
yeah.
But it's that perspective and that thought of, I mean, he survived for, about 15 more years longer, but still that first wake up call, and we wanted to make it past that, and we did not want to be like him and
Mhm.
work through as a physician assistant, go in at 6 o'clock in the morning and, leave at 6 and 7 o'clock at night, miss
Mhm.
softball games, baseball games, whatever. And so we also didn't want to be like that previous generation. And
Yeah.
so we stood more firm and said, no, this isn't going to happen. We're going to have healthy hearts and healthy minds and hopefully healthy families.
Well, and it is a mindset thing.
Mhm.
I see it all the time. I one of my swim lanes, I work as a coach with Pulse 360. So they do 360s for healthcare people, right? So this is primarily physicians, APPs, and other healthcare leaders. So I've had the opportunity to be in a room with all levels, regardless of what the feedback is. You may get feedback that there's huge opportunities. You may get feedback that you're doing great, and there's still opportunities because I see it with people in the room. And burnout is one of those areas that these subtle shifts that we can make that are so powerful, because I see it in the room with the humans I'm with all the time, is just the way we're describing what's happening. And it goes back to the quote that you were talking about. if stuff's happening around us and we're tired, we work long days, whatever it may be, and we describe it like I'm burnt out or I'm stressed out or I'm overwhelmed, that signals to our subconscious we're not safe. You can also unintentionally own it as an identity, which is a whole nother thing that your brain will do everything in its power to align your experiences to that. When we shift that language, right? And I'm sure you've experienced it, and we just drop burnout to the sidewalk and we go, okay, what am I seeing, hearing, and feeling? Well, I've worked freaking 3 12-hour shifts, or I've worked 9 days in a row. I actually need to go home, put my feet up, and have a glass of wine, which is different than I'm burnt out, because burnout, there's no path out of it. So when we open up the stuff that we're actually seeing, it's like, okay, what's the path forward? I'm actually going to go home, put my feet up, and have a glass of wine. The energy shifts are powerful, and it does take people from what you were describing, from shrinking to stepping in and owning, and it's hugely impactful.
Well, it's
And one of
also
the
not
things,
one size fits all, right? Like
Yes.
there's been points in my life where I was energized by the extra work, by the new project, by the tricky problem that we're trying to solve. So I just, I know neither of you are saying this, but I feel like sometimes we slip into the easy answers. Oh, well, then let's standardize this. And so everybody can have Wednesdays off. That's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like how are we part of creating a world that is more responsive to each different person's needs while still minding the business and making sure that, we have enough staff and we get the things done we need to get done. But each person needs something a little bit different, which is one of the tricky problems, I think, with leadership. Is one of my favorite problems with leadership, right? Because the first thing is I have to know you. The second thing is I have to pay attention to what I think I know about you and the new things you're teaching about me, and I have to mind the business. But I don't know. I think that's one of the fun parts being in the small company we're at, right? So at
Yeah.
Value Capture, we are uh, big enough to have an impact, but small enough to be, I think, quite nimble and flexible, and hopefully responding to each person's needs. So
It's
I guess I'm
interesting.
just thinking about that
Well,
as you guys are
no, and
talking about it. And I interrupted
and
Megan. I didn't mean to do that. I do it on the
yeah,
regular. So
um, I just want to comment on that, and then I'm sure Megan, you'll chime in too, is that yes, it's not a one size fits all. There's definitely standard work for plenty of standard things, and then you manage to the rule, not the exception. That being said, the message that I want people to walk away with is we're not going to hand it over to leadership to fix our experience of our life and our perception and the language we're using and all this stuff. We got to own that crap. I mean, it's like, am I sitting here feeling like I have no control, I can't do anything about it? Then that's on me because I freaking have control. And so for me, I don't have control of everything, but the things I have control of, I want to make sure I'm making intentional decisions on those things. And I think what happens a lot of times is people just hand the whole freaking thing over and say, I'm not happy. And what are you going to do about it? And I'm like, that's not their job to fix your happy. And so I don't say it this way to people, but it's like you have the power to make choices about stuff. Exhaust that first.
I mean, I don't disagree. Well, I do disagree actually. So I think you're right, and I think that comes from a position, for me anyway. I have not always had the privilege of being able to take that power and make those decisions. There was a time in my life where maybe I had it, maybe I didn't, but I didn't know yet
Bingo.
the power I had to say no or to say yes and. I mean, I didn't. And I'm not saying that's truth. but that was my perception of my life. And so that was my truth. And so I
Mhm.
actually think it is important to try to understand where people at in their journey of knowing they have the privilege to say no.
Mhm.
Because I mean, there are people that don't know that yet or don't believe that. And so then that is their truth.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I guess I just want to push back a little bit. I agree with you for my life now, but it's not so far from my life when I didn't know that that was my truth. And
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure it was my truth.
Um, we don't know what we don't know, and there's a
Yeah.
distinct difference between being able to say no. Again, those are choices that we have, and then even saying yes, that we have the power to provide meaning to the experience that's happening in the yes. And that's what I'm saying is that, and yes, it's a development thing. And I want to challenge people to question and take back and explore the meaning that they're giving to what's happening around them to be able to shift it. If it's anchoring you in and making you feel like crap, then change it. It's a lie.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. And to your point, a lot of people don't know. They don't know. And I want them to know. And it doesn't matter what age you're at. My gosh, and from college students to, doctors who are toward the end of their career, they don't know. And it's like I want people to feel inspired.
I think
Definitely.
inspiration, I'm similar with Shanna too. I think inspiration is one thing, but having the power or the privilege and the confidence to do it, to say no or to make the change without worrying about the repercussions or the outcome. I mean, before I went into healthcare, I was a journalist and I was smack dab in the Me Too movement without even knowing I was in the Me Too
Oh,
movement until, 20 years later. And if I had spoken up or done anything, I mean, it was my job and it was my passion. It's what I went to school for. So I kind of fell in line. And now, like I said, now that I'm in my 50s, I really don't care so much. And so I speak more and I'm more confident, but I know the 25-year-old Megan probably would have spoke confidently to my friends over wine, but not necessarily to my boss. So I think
yeah.
part of the leadership too, to Shanna's point, is to be able to see your team and to know what's going on. And so that and to listen, to like literally stop talking and listen to them. And if there is a way that you are hearing that they want to say no or they want to say yes, to allow them to, or give them the space,
Mhm.
or back them up, or encourage them, because I think there are more and more people, especially more recently, who have lost a lot of power to speak up.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because my brain goes to the conversation and then the meaning behind certain things that we're all taking away that's a little bit different, right? So the what you just said, yes, I mean emphatically yes. A leader's job, I go back to the Toyota old with the leader on the mountain with the two other people on the rope, and they're focused on the team. And a leader's job is to develop your people to deliver results. Of course, you have to start with yourself. There's a lot in there, Megan, about we need to meet people where they're at, right? We need to be looking to understand where they're at. That being said, and then as a leader to create the space so that people they're not fearful to step in and share differing opinion, whatever that may be, because we need those other perspectives. Otherwise, we're just getting my view of the world or someone else's view of it. It's like, okay, well, that's your one perspective. The nuance thing that I'm saying, because I absolutely agree and I appreciate both of you pushing back and challenging and saying, wait a minute, Michelle, is I want people to realize at the core of who they are that and I go back to Sean Akers' happiness advantage, that if I know everything about your external environment, I can only predict 10% of your future happiness. And when I share that to a room of people, whether they've signed up for managing overwhelm or whatever else they may be doing, right, is that is the hope that we realize, wait a minute, if we've handed over control of our happiness, we've given too much away, because that is the interpretation we make out of what is happening around us. What is the meaning I give it, right? I had a client earlier, and she's come so far. I'm so freaking proud of her. Is that she was riding a bike with her daughter, and the neighbor, who they go to coffee every once in a while, that sort of thing, pulls out of the driveway, and she had pulled over and slowed down with the bikes, and she imagined the neighbor would come along and roll the window down. I did the crank, hit the button, right? Hit the button. And say hey, and then go on. Well, the neighbor zooms out the driveway and she zooms down the street. And the narrative in her head in that moment was, I wonder if I should check on her. I wonder what I did wrong. Is she okay? I mean, this is where and she goes, I stopped myself and said, this isn't about me. So it's those moments that we start realizing that the impact of how we experience, not the necessarily content or whatever, is we have so much more control over than what we imagine. Are we gonna, like you said, I was actively involved in the Me Too movement and didn't realize it. What I'm saying for people is be intentional, be aware. What is getting you worked up? Is that your thing, or are you taking on someone else's thing? So I appreciate the perspectives, because I agree, people don't know. And I so encourage people to have a realization that they have more control over their experience of their life than what they ever realize. Because one of my goals is to have humans have the best freaking experience in this life that they can have. And I think that's one of the big lessons.
I really like what Megan was saying about the slowing down and listening in order to, for lots of reasons. But I like that a lot because what I'm reflecting on as you guys are sort of exploring this is my own personal trajectory, which of course is the one it's easiest to connect back to sometimes. But um, knowing that now, because I have had the opportunity to learn new ways and try new things out, and I have more belief in my own power and choices and all of those great things, great. How do I understand that that's where I'm at? But what do I do with it is the more important thing,
Mhm.
right? And so back to what Megan was saying about slow down, listen, and what am I going to do to pay it forward? And there's so many Maya Angelou quotes you could have picked, Megan, but I think a lot about what is my responsibility now for the people that are going to, take what we've left, what we put in place and make better of it. And, what is my job in that space so that it is easier for them than it was for me. And then I believe they'll do the same thing for the next generation. How do I make it easier for the next group than it was for me? Because otherwise, what's really the point, right? There are lots of short-term payoffs, but the long-term payoff is, how do we set the space up better for the next group?
Mhm.
My grandma always said, do your best until you know better, and then do that, right? Then do better. Do the best until you know better, and then do better. And
And you do know that's a Maya Angelou quote, right?
no, that's my grandma. My
So
grandma and
what
my
is the age thing here? So who came first, chicken or the egg? Was it the grandma or Maya? Did Maya get it from the grandma?
no, uh, it's hard to say. My grandma has passed many, many, many decades ago now, so actually, she might have been first. But
Yeah, that's funny.
isn't that just the truth, though?
I love
Do
it.
the best you can and then do better. Well, we have gone
So
quite walkabout.
is it do
Yeah,
your
we've gone
best?
super walkabout. I had no idea what we would talk about, and this is great, Megan, bringing cool stuff to the front.
Do the best,
Um,
do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
yeah, okay.
That's Maya.
I do, yeah, I do love it. And it's Shana's grandma, and then Maya took it from there.
had no idea.
I love it. Well, and the thing is, what you'll find when you start researching quotes is there's different iterations,
Mhm.
right, of this theme that came out. It's almost like somebody told me at one point, there's like, and I'm just going to make this number up, there's only 9 different types of story plots. And then you've got all
Megan,
these different stories based on these 9 different plots that you can have. And quotes are probably the same thing. It's like, here's the theme, and it may have gone back to Aristotle at one point, that did this quote that sounded like that. Um, so yeah, I I appreciate the exploration, to your point, of the different facets of it. Um, and I do agree. We do need to slow down. We do need to breathe. We do need to meet people where they're at. Because if not, we move on and they're not moving on as well. One of the biggest things I think we can do as a leader is when people on our team promote and go off and do these other freaking amazing things. And that to me is a sign of success of leadership, is like, wow, great job. So, yeah.
So what I was going to say before, kind of tying it into something Shanna had mentioned earlier, but when we have meetings for value capture, we always lead with safety. And when I've only been with value capture about 14 months or so. So when it kind of threw me off initially to go into a meeting, and I'm like, I got to look around make sure my space is safe and like my cat is okay or my coffee cup is full. I mean, but after so many times of going into those meetings and looking out for myself, but then looking out for others and hearing what they've experienced, it really it has made me so much more appreciate this culture and this leadership. And one of the things I was going to say earlier about leaders emulating their beliefs was Shanna. I've been watching and observing Shanna in the CEO role. She hasn't been the CEO for too long. And during some of this time, she had to do literally cross country support of her mom.
Mhm.
And to see her leading the company, but then to pause and stop and say, no, I know that the rest of you can can carry forth the company and do well. I have to be the daughter to support, my mom in particular, and just to see that, and then even her vulnerability to ask for help, or even just to not necessarily even ask for help, but just to share what she's going through. And having lost both my parents, I could relate,
Mhm.
and I really. I mean, to me, it demonstrated that empathy and authenticity and candor for her to be able to show that she's not just a hard ass CEO that's looking at getting, process improvement and whatever, but
Yeah.
she is a daughter, first. And then all of us were also watching that. And and it was one of the reasons, and there's many, but that was one of the reasons why I love working with this team, is because they do walk the walk, and talk the talk,
Mhm.
and follow up and make sure that we are cared for, taken care of, we have the tools, and we're safe.
I love it. I love it. Um, as we look at wrapping up, yeah, I appreciate the conversation. I have a feeling we could probably go into several different areas and surface different perspectives, which is awesome. Um, what are some thoughts, some last things that you want to leave people with, just around any of the stuff that we chatted about, or maybe something that we haven't brought in the room yet that you think maybe would be good to have brought in the room?
I think one of the things that I've learned, especially in this last year, is the importance of having, you'd mentioned the village, but a tribe, that, yes, you can do things alone, but then it's going to be lonely. And I think it's very important to have the cheerleaders, the tact checkers, as one friend that we call each other, the, those who see everything from all different perspectives, and so maybe some of those that are just there and silent. And I think it's important as leaders to know that it's important, for yourself and for your team, for them to see that you've got that support system. And it could be a simple note, or it could be someone showing up with you at a meeting or setting up a call, something along that line. But it's really looking around the world at your space, whether it's your room, your office, your house, your neighborhood, your community, and seeing that you're not alone, and appreciating the others who are there and watching out for them, being reciprocating and doing the same for them because they're also looking around their room, their neighborhood, their state to see who can support them, help them, cheer them on.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when I think about that. I go back to the subconscious, right? And the signal of, looking out to make sure we're safe. And then the other is that we use the least amount of energy. And so in the safety sphere, all the stuff you talk about, even though even the intentionality around safety to kick off every time you come together is that message of I'm safe. And when we're safe, then and we truly feel it and the subconscious feels it, then we're online and on fire with everything else, the creativity, the innovation, the boldly taking risk, and I don't mean crazy stuff, but we're all in when we feel safe. And whether we're a child growing up and feeling that way, or we're someone in an organization that we're like, okay, I can bring me and the challenging conversations and all the perspective and everything that I have because I feel safe. It's huge. Yeah. Shanna, how about you?
I think what's been really alive for me in the last few weeks through a couple different just experiences I've had or places I've been is I had no idea what I would be, what I would do, where I would be, what being grown up would look like. Um, Even when I had mental pictures of it, I had no idea what
Yeah.
growing up would be. And I'm trying really hard now to maintain that. I'm not ready to uh, start thinking that we're finished, right? Like we grow up and we're arrived, we're here, we're whatever. I think that that's actually something that I am actively and intentionally making sure that I do keep that open mind about what I might be someday when I grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires me to step into spaces with new people and new ideas and open myself up to lots of feedback. Some of that comes to me from my good friend Megan here. And it's great and it's exhausting and that's a learning for me. So what do I do to share that learning so that other people can take it, not take it, but do what they wish to do with it in the space that they're seeking to make a difference in? And I think about that for my kids, for my neighbors, for my community, for the places I volunteer. But I also think about that for the people we partner with. I don't know everything they want to do. I know them in their workspace, right? I don't know them in their whole life space. So it's just been a really interesting bit of time to try to open my aperture a little bit about how do I support others in whatever they want to be when they grow up. Because those have been gifts that I've gotten. And I don't care how old I'm going to be this year. I realize I may never actually be grown up, and I'm actually pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
not actually happy about it. Megan, my other friend Megan, who spelled it a different way, she would say, Shanna, you're saying actually too much. And she would be correct. I am happy that I'm never going to grow up. It's a good thing.
Yeah, well,
This was
especially if
fun.
grow up means that all the other stuff, the exploration, the growth, that all the stuff
Yeah.
stops. Because right now it's like, and grown up feels like when you were describing it, like the doors close and there's no more
Oh,
fun, exciting possibilities. And I have to agree with you, is that this was years ago, I realized that grouchy old people didn't become grouchy when they were old. They were grouchy young people. Okay. So, It's up to us. I mean, we can embrace and explore and constantly be, the word's playful. That was my word last year. It was a really hard word for me too, because there is an intensity about me that when I show up, and playful went into curiosity. That's my word for this year. And it is curious about those things that I hadn't thought of. What is something else new to explore that I can explore? And I encourage others to do it too, because we freaking don't know what we don't know. And that's the
You know,
beauty
we
of
often
it.
don't know what we think we know too,
That,
just to be really
yes,
clear. Like you don't
yes,
know what you don't know, but you don't know
yes,
what you think you know sometimes
yeah.
too.
Even what you think you know, you don't know. Yeah. I just it's such a really fun learning journey. And yeah, so I totally emphatically agree with you. Yes. Thank both of you for this time. I truly appreciate it. The pushbacks, the conversation, the walk away that I want people to think about is there isn't just one way. And if you're feeling stuck, boxed in, um, you know, frustrated, like you don't have control or don't whatever, please explore that. Because a lot of times it's of our own choosing, even if we didn't consciously choose it. So, because no choice is still a choice. So I encourage you to it is better, it's more fun. And I agree with you, Shanna, that, and Megan too, that, as we can work on our terms. We just need to start the conversation. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time, this is Leadership Soundbites with Megan and Shanna and Michelle, and have a freaking awesome day. Thank you.